Part 124. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1231. The formation has not started yet. Sun Qiniang looked at Mengwei, her face was also particularly solemn. Maybe Zuyun didn't notice the right time, Mengwei said, but how could the dragon and phoenix be so strong? She could recognize that the phantom of the dragon and phoenix was the spirit of the dragon and phoenix, but now she saw that it was very powerful. If she hadn't refined the Balian fire vein, she would have felt a little familiar breath from the dragon and phoenix, and she would have made such a judgment. Could it be related to the hammer? Sun Qiniang's eyes flashed. Even though she had fused the fire phoenix pearl, she had a deep fear of the hammer. Maybe it was because her body was also reshaped by the hammer. But Ye Yuan's hammer was comparable to the existence of an immortal weapon. Could it be that this hammer was also related to the immortal world? If so, then the golden light was the immortal light. Sun Qiniang seemed to remember something, lowered her head and stared at the magic knife in Mengwei's hand, and whispered, "Master Lian, do you know anything?" Lian Changfeng's voice came from the knife. "Jian Huang, I never knew where the hammer came from, but Wei is right, this dragon and phoenix is indeed the spirit of the dragon and phoenix double pillars. As for why it has become so strong, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the hammer." Mengwei frowned and said, "Ordinary refining methods all require hammers to forge, right? Then this hammer must be related to your Balian sect." "Wei, I really don't know. Balian sect has been passed down for many years, but most of it is passed down by word of mouth, so it is inevitable that there will be omissions. Otherwise, just based on our ancestors' successful ascension to the fairyland, and occasional news, our Balian sect would not have become a neutral sect. It is precisely because of the loss of many mysterious magic beds that there is no more tribulation period in our sect, and we will not fall to this point." Lian Changfeng tried his best to explain, but it seemed to give Mengwei a hint. "Your ancestor ascended to the immortal world, so this hammer, could it be left by your immortal ancestor?" Lian Changfeng was stunned, and then said, "The immortal ancestor later left behind a fairy thought, but did not leave anything behind." "Fairy thought?" Sun Qiniang and Mengwei looked at each other at the same time. Could it be that this golden light is the fairy thought conveying something? Did the three people in the tribulation period also discover this fairy thought, so they want to seize it, thus triggering the dragon and phoenix spirit guards? Go and see, maybe it was caused by Zuyun. Mengwei's eyes condensed slightly. In her eyes, Zuyun has always been a person with great luck. This is really possible. Although Zuyun knows how to refine weapons, he may not necessarily trigger fairy thoughts, right? Sun Qiniang was more cautious. Not only did this hammer give her a sense of pressure, but the three people in the tribulation period were so strong that if a little spiritual power overflowed, they could be crushed to pieces. Mengwei said fearlessly, "Qiniang, take a closer look. Although the fight over there is fierce, it has not affected us at all. Maybe it is this hammer, or the immortal thoughts are blocking us. Let's not use spiritual power, climb out from there." Sun Qiniang looked and indeed found an inconspicuous staircase on one side of the cliff. It may have been covered by grass and trees because no one had walked on it for many years. But because of the previous shock, the grass and trees were destroyed, so it was revealed. "Okay, let's go and see." The formation has not been activated. Maybe it is because Zuyun is receiving immortal thoughts. Although we are not as good as the crossing tribulation stage, we can at least protect him. Sun Qiniang's eyes flashed, and she turned to Lian Changjiao and said, "Second elder, I can't take you there, please forgive me." Lian Changjiao smiled bitterly, "I know that I will also hold you back if I go there. To think that he, a great Mahayana sage, would be despised by the God transformation stage, is a great absurdity in the world. Master Lian, you should stay here too. Meng Wei casually put the magic knife into Lian Changjiao's hand and said, you brothers are here, so you can take care of them. If there is any crisis, at least you can strike back. After that, the two of them used their body skills and ran towards the cliff. They did not dare to use their spiritual power, for fear of attracting the attention of the immortal thoughts. Using only the power of the physical body to control the body skills, the speed was much slower, but it was safer. And the wood incarnation had never expected that the golden light would follow his divine eye formula and pass through the five elements trapped spirit formation directly to reach his purple mansion. His physical body was unconscious, but in the purple mansion, there was a golden light. I saw a hammer that was exactly the same as the three characters of Balian sect, and it was constantly hitting. Dang! 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 The previous sound had not yet fallen, and the next sound started, one after another, and it became a whole. At first, the spirit of the wood incarnation was still a little uncomfortable. But as he hammered down 10 or 100 times, he was surprised to find that the hammer seemed to be performing some kind of hammering technique. Heavenly fire tempering body art? The wood incarnation first thought of this art, after all, it was a change in the Balian sect. But after thinking about it, he felt it was wrong. Heavenly fire tempering body art, that is clearly using heavenly fire to forge the body, making the body extremely hard, so as to withstand the thunder of the catastrophe of ascension. First, it is not heavenly fire, and it is not tempering the body, nothing is appropriate. What is that? The wood incarnation has never understood it, so he has never woken up. Even though Sun Qinyang and Meng Wei have already followed the golden light and come to the outside of the five elements soul trapping array. They don't understand the array, so naturally they can't get in. Zuyun must be inside, look at the five-color spiritual power flowing in this formation. Meng Wei was so anxious that he was running around, and his worry about Mujiajia was clearly revealed. Sun Qinyang also had a similar expression. Zuyun, even in an incarnation, was the most important person in her heart. I don't know either. It would be great if Brother Yuan was here. As she said that, she pinched the talisman in her arms, but her reason told her that Yuan no longer wanted to care about the spiritual world and the mortal world. Even if he crushes the talisman, can he still come from Yejiakan immediately? The fight in the sky was as fierce as Sun Qinyang and the others were as anxious as ants on a hot pot, and Longwu and others did not dare to activate the formation rashly because of the sudden change. Only Xianxia, following the fire veins, took a sharp turn and reached the depths of the Balian sect. Where the fire veins gather, the fire power here is extremely huge, and compared to the fire veins, it is even more stable. And the most important thing is that there are countless nascent spiritual fires here. These spiritual fires have a little open intelligence and no evil intentions. They are full of curiosity about the creatures that appear here. However, because these spiritual fires do not have any impurities, they are nothing short of a great tonic for Xianxia, and there are so many of them. Why bother refining the fire veins? Why don't you use my earth fire to swallow all these spiritual fires? It will take 5 months to swallow it, and then wait until the secret realm of ascension is opened. Through the behavior of these spiritual fires, Xianxia concluded that no one had ever been here, and that was the best thing. No one will disturb you, so just practice with peace of mind. As for the five elements sect and so on, wait until I, Xianxia, arrive at the secret realm of Xianxia, and then gather all the five elements sect members there. The fairy treasure in the secret realm must be obtained by me. By then, in the entire spiritual world, who else will be my opponent? GGG. Xianxia let out a sharp and unpleasant laugh, causing some spirit fires who wanted to come up and take a good look at Xianxia to suddenly stop. But it's already too late. Xianxia waved her hand, and the earth fire spurted out from her dantian, engulfing them all. Clang! Clang. Clang. In the zifa where the wood was transformed, the hammer was still beating continuously. He seemed to be completely trapped in his body and unable to wake up. Mujiawa knew that he could not be impatient. After forcing himself to calm down, he began to concentrate and actively eliminate the sounds that would affect his mind. Since it is not tempering the physical body, nor is it tempering the body, then what else can a person practice? There are 3,000 avenues. Among this hammer, there must be one. However, it may be an avenue that I am not aware of. The way of the hammer. Thinking of this, Mu Incarnation couldn't help but smile bitterly. There are people who practice hammers, but they are like sword practitioners who use hammers as their natal magic weapon. Among these people, the one he knew best was Ye Yuan. That thunder immortal hammer can actually store the tribulation thunder of heaven, which is extremely terrifying. Furthermore, Ye Yang, whom I have always heard of, used a chaos hammer to practice all the way to the immortal realm and became the immortal king. Could it be the chaos hammer? Mujiawa shook his head. How could this be possible? Chaos hammer. I heard that the chaos hammer was once the natal magic weapon of the five elements Sanren, but later it was acquired by Qiu Linjian for some unknown reason. I heard from Ye Yuan that Qiu Linjian and Ye Yuan met in Yejia village. At that time, Qiu Linjian seemed to have been hammered to Yejia village by the chaos hammer, and was finally acquired by Ye Yang. There's no way this hammer could bring me to Yejiakan, right? Why are you thinking so wrong again? This must have nothing to do with the chaos hammer. Mujiawa cursed secretly, but suddenly an idea came to his mind. The chaos hammer is the natal spiritual weapon of Chaos Sanren, but it was obtained by Ye Yang, who was still immortal at the time. Then can I, also refine this hammer? With the thought, Mu Incarnation began to think about the feasibility of this matter. But he and Zuyun are one body, and they are already considered to have a natal immortal weapon, which is naturally the Diwu glazed mirror. No, no. Mu Incarnation secretly feels something is wrong. Even if it is an immortal treasure, as long as it is in the yellow star, it will be restricted by the laws of heaven here. Wait a minute, the universe world. Mujianying suddenly trembled. The only thing related to the immortal world in his body was the fragment of the great universe glass mirror. The isolated island in it was once part of the great universe world. Is it possible that the universe is related to this hammer? Isn't this too mysterious? He knew that the ancestors of the Balian sect had ascended to the immortal world for a long time, but the problem was that the glazed mirror in which the great universe and the great universe were integrated was owned by the immortal emperor. Could it be that the cosmic glazed mirror was refined in the fairy world by the ancestors of the 100 Refiners sect? Impossible. How long has the 100 Refiners sect existed in the spiritual world? Also, a mere yellow star is the lowest class star in the fairy world. How could he be so powerful? Mujiajiya didn't dare to think about it, but other than that, he couldn't think of any other possibility. I am just an incarnation, and I can only take out the fragments of the universe. At worst, give it a try, or you'll end up here. Wooden Avatar gritted his teeth. He had never tried whether he could enter the universe in this state. But logically speaking, entering the world of the universe only requires one thought from him. Just give it a try. Get in. As he thought, a mysterious force suddenly began to pull at his soul. At the same time, the situation in Zi Mansion also changed. The sound of the hammer hitting became more rapid. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1232. The sound of hammering was not only rapid, but also became more chaotic. The same rhythm kept ringing in Mugenjia's ears. When this sudden change occurred, he immediately discovered something. But before he could come to his senses, the soul escaped from his body and appeared on the island of Dazhu. This is. He stared blankly at his hands, which turned out to be a pair of phantoms. He thought that if his mind moved, his body would also enter them. But why, only the soul enters? Not only that, the messy sounds were still there. He suddenly raised his head and his expression changed. Before he fell into coma, he clearly remembered that the hammer was hanging in mid-air at the Balian Peak. But at this time, it was actually entangled with the golden light in the sky. At this time, he also discovered that the location where he entered the island had also changed. Platform. On the platform on the island. Why is it here? Clang. Just when Mu Jianying's eyes merged into the golden light, the hammer turned sharply down and slammed towards his soul. Boom. 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 There were 3 loud noises, and the speed of the hammer was so fast that the incarnation of Lingmu didn't even react and smashed his soul. But fortunately, the soul has no fixed form, and for some reason, the hammer did not hurt him. Apart from the shocking power, there was nothing else. After hitting the hammer flew up along the golden light again, and the wooden incarnation also recovered its human shape. Boom. But the hammer struck again and shattered his soul again. After repeating it several times in succession, Mu Jiawa was pleasantly surprised to find that his soul seemed to have become more solid. Why is this so? He couldn't find the key. He originally hid in the isolated island of Dazhu to find another way to survive. But what happened before him was beyond his expectation, but it was also an unexpected surprise. No matter, since I am tempering my soul, let it go. I just don't know what will happen if the physical body is left in the 5 elements trap spirit formation. The wooden incarnation stopped being entangled and allowed the hammer to refine his spirit. At the same time, in the immortal mansion, in the cave, a golden light suddenly flashed, and an embarrassed figure jumped out covered in that golden light. Damn it, when I recover, I have to make you look good. It's Zuyun. He cursed and finally got out of the talisman space. In a place where there is no daylight and even the passage of time becomes extremely slow, if one's character is even slightly weaker, it may be a disaster. But fortunately, Zuyun's greatest advantage is that he has a firm mind. And the suppression of him by countless purgatory mountains finally eliminated all the evil immortal blood skills hidden in his body. That's all. It's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge in 300 years. I'll be a dog next time I enter this celestial talisman space. When I ascend to the immortal world, I must find Purgatory Mountain and press this book into it. Despite the scolding, Zuyun actually knew that he was venting his emotions during this period. After cursing for a while, he looked into the immortal mansion, but nothing changed. Those fairy medicines all took the form of humans and looked at him with strange expressions, which made Zuyun's expression stiffen. Master, what happened? In the end, Huang Longshu managed to calm down and came up to ask. It's nothing, I'm just trapped in a book and almost can't get out. Zuyun curled his lips, and then said, there are no surprises in the immortal mansion, right? What accident could happen? Huang Longshu smiled. This was the normal Zuyun. When he was relieved, he pointed to the weapon refining room not far away and said, but there was the sound of hammering over there, as if someone was refining the weapon. Weapon refining. Zuyun's eyes suddenly widened and he said in disbelief, I have just come out, who is refining weapons in here? If I remember correctly, he complained at the time that there was nothing in the refining room except a stove. Later, I thought that I had no need to refine weapons for the time being, so I just let it go and basically never went there. Feng Tian. He stretched out his hand, and a fire shadow emerged from his forearm. Owner. Zuyun did not deliberately suppress Feng Tianyan's spiritual consciousness. He could also hear Huang Longshu's words and knew Zuyun's purpose of calling him out. Let's go over and take a look at the refining room. In the past, the Immortal Emperor asked you to light the fire, right? The Immortal Emperor rarely refines weapons, but I don't go to the weapon refining room very often. Fen Tian also told the truth, one person, one fire, and one tree, and walked towards the weapon refining room. The sound of the hammer beating was getting louder and louder. There really are people. Zhu Yun's face condensed. Could it be the dragon suppressing stone? But dragon suppressing stone and Huang Longshu are all acquainted with them. Moreover, when he threw the dragon suppressing stone into the dragon transformation pond, he also told him that if he successfully transformed into a demon dragon, he should not leave before he came out. The key is, dragon suppressing stone doesn't know how to refine weapons. However, Zhu Yun also knew that this immortal mansion was now considered his real natal immortal weapon, and ordinary people really couldn't get in. The only possibility is the great universe artifact Immortal. But since the jade slip was taken away, it can be said that the immortal mansion and Xianxia have no relationship at all. Standing quietly in front of the weapon refining room, Zhu Yun thought for a moment, then pushed open the door with Fenchen and Huang Longshu. The room was still empty, except for the stove, there was nothing else. But the problem is that the sound of the hammer is even stronger. He looked solemn and tried to find the source of the sound, but he couldn't find it at all. What's going on? He looked at Fen Tianyan, who shook his head and said that he didn't know either. He looked at Huang Longshu again, and Huang Longshu also expressed confusion. For countless years, he basically never left the medicine garden. Even if he did, he only went to the edge of the void to absorb the power of chaos and then practice. You guys go out first. Zhu Yun turned around. It was the first time such a change had occurred in the immortal mansion, and he had to act with caution. It would be relatively convenient for him to let Huang Longshu and Fen Tianyan leave. Yes, master. Fen Tianyan and Huang Longshu, who had turned into human forms, looked at each other, quietly retreated, and even helped close the door. Zhu Yunjingzin began to walk back and forth around the house, trying to find any clues. But no matter where he was, his voice didn't change at all, it was still as chaotic and disorderly. He also got into the furnace himself, and the same thing happened. Could this sound come from the void? After climbing out of the furnace, Zhu Yun set his sights on a window in the weapon refining room, but this window only led to the back of Sword Mountain, not to the void. Could it be, that it's from the great universe world? Zhu Yun frowned again, but he had just escaped from the Tianfu space and had no spiritual power at all in his body. If the matter here is not resolved, the mind cannot calm down to refine the energy, and it is easy to go crazy. No, we still have to find out where the sound comes from. Zhu Yun shook his head and put aside the idea of refining qi first. But when he looked back, he discovered that there was a faint golden light on a piece of iron next to the stove. Huh! He was slightly stunned. He had almost never been to the weapon refining room, and he had never noticed it before. But at this moment, he could tell at a glance that it was an anvil made of unknown materials. Did the sound come from inside? Zhu Yun thought for a moment and felt a little incredible. Is it possible that there is something inside this anvil? Out of nowhere, Zhu Yun put his ear up. Clang! 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 Suddenly, the sound of hammering became louder, as if it was striking his soul. Zhu Yun was startled and raised his head instantly, with a look of shock on his face. Just now, he discovered that a golden hammer appeared in his Zi mansion and hit him. There is no doubt that the sound came from this anvil, but the problem is that there is no space in it. Thousands of miles of sound transmission. Not to mention that there are such mysterious spells in the spiritual world, even in the mortal world, there are some people with exquisite Taoism who can achieve this effect through refined magic weapons. But Zhu Yun was extremely certain that this had nothing to do with magic. He looked around the room, still empty. Could it be that this fragment originally belonged to the weapon refining room and all the items used in the weapon refining were once left in the mortal world? The objects belonging to the weapon refining room, such as the hammer, are more or less related. But when refining the weapon, can this sound still be transmitted to the immortal mansion? Could it be the fragment from the Five Elements sect, and someone is refining it? He now knows that the only fragment of the immortal mansion that he has not succeeded in is in the Five Elements sect, so he will naturally make such a guess. The Five Elements sect is going to go, but this is not the time. We should go to practice G first, and then go out and take a look. After finding some clues, Zuyun left the weapon refining room. Master, have you discovered anything? Fen Tianyan and Huang Longshu both came forward. Zuyun smiled and said, there are some, but I'm not sure. In response, he turned to look at Fen Tianyan and said, Fen Tian, do you know if the immortal emperor had a golden hammer before, used to refine weapons? Golden light hammer? Is it a hammer glowing with golden light? Fen Tianyan's intelligence is now closer to that of a normal person. After a little thought, he realizes that the word golden light is not the name of the hammer, but its characteristics. Yes, the golden light is always noticeable when tapping. There seems to be one. The hammer is weird, but the handle is short and sharp. Yes, that's exactly it. Zuyun was overjoyed. The hammer he described was naturally the hammer he saw in the Zi mansion after he put his face against the anvil. That's the immortal soul hammer, used to temper the immortal soul. Master, is the immortal soul hammer still in this refining room? Fen Tianyan was puzzled and looked inside the house. There was obviously nothing inside. Immortal soul hammer. A flash of light flashed in Zuyun's eyes. Could it be that this hammer was obtained by a monk from the spiritual world, and then he was hitting something at this moment? He never imagined that the immortal soul hammer and the anvil would resonate and were constantly tempering the soul of his wooden incarnation. After pondering for a moment, he said, just stay in this room. When the sound of hammering stops, you can tell me again. I will go to Dazhu world to see it first. After that, he said goodbye to Fen Tianyan and Huang Longshu, said hello to all the immortal medicines, and entered the world of the universe. After being locked up in the Tianfu space for so long, I don't know what happened to Ergu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1233. Arriving at the long-lost world of Dazhu, Zuyun took a deep breath. Before he could enjoy it, he was suddenly attracted by a golden light in the sky. In the night sky, the golden light was particularly conspicuous. When he looked carefully, it seemed to be emitted from the side of the world tree. And this golden light was all too familiar to him. It was the golden light when 12 totem poles gathered together to form one. Thinking about the totem pole and the 12 demon clans carrying the destiny, Zuyun was shocked and secretly thought, could it be that the world of the universe has changed? Hurry over and have a look. A moment later, he was standing not far from the ancestral tree. On the other side of the world lake, he saw the golden light emitted by the 12 totem poles, shooting into the void, and he didn't know where it extended. Master, you are finally here. At this time, World Tree suddenly opened his eyes and looked towards Zuyun. Old Tree, what happened to the totem pole? Listening to World Tree's tone, it seemed that nothing had changed. Zuyun felt relieved and immediately flew over. Somehow, a few days ago, the totem pole suddenly seemed to come alive. Not only did it emit golden light, but the universe was also shaken by it. But fortunately, no other strange phenomena occurred, and the totem pole also shook for a moment. And stopped moving. World Tree's words made Zuyun ponder. Could it be that something happened to the 12 demon clans? But I feel that the chance of this is too small. As a result, only 11 of the 12 major demon clans were left. Although he finally settled his feud with Long Wu, it was true that only Longwu was left in the Demon Dragon clan, and his whereabouts were unknown. At the same time, this void belongs to another world and is not within the scope of the Yellow Star. How can this be connected? But World Tree did not know other information, which also puzzled Zuyun. But fortunately, there are no other changes in the world of the universe, not even because of the addition of more laws. This also forced Zuyun to temporarily forget about such changes. How's Ergu? Zuyun glanced aside. Ergu was still unconscious, showing no signs of waking up. Even his breathing was as steady as ever. It's still the same, but if it drags on any longer, I'm afraid he'll never wake up. Speaking of Ergu, Yggdrasil's expression couldn't help but become solemn. All he could do was to protect Ergu's vitality and stability. Then it's time for me to take him out. I don't know how the Xianguang sect has collected the required materials. If he were far away, he might not be able to do anything about Ergu's life and death, but right in front of him, Zuyun would never let anything happen to him. It's just that during this period of time, he didn't know what changes had happened outside. Old Shu, if you keep an eye on this place, it's time for me to leave. When Zuyun was about to say goodbye, he heard World Tree say, Master, don't be in a hurry, there is still something I haven't told you yet. Zuyun stopped and asked, what's the matter? The world of the universe seems to be moving somewhere, but because the entire world is in the void, I don't know much about it. After the words fell, the world mountain also appeared. I can feel a familiar aura, but it is very weak. Maybe there is a fragment of the universe world. Besides, Zuyun was happy at first, but then he was shocked. The World Tree was said to be moving in one direction. Could it be that someone else had refined the world of the universe to pull his world? So, the other person's world is bigger? Yes, the old tree controls the origin of this world, but I control the land of this world. I can feel it moving, not floating in the void like before. After hearing this, Zuyun took a deep breath and said, if that's the case, I'm afraid someone really has fragments, and their control over the fragments is no less than mine. It's even possible that the other party's fragment space is larger. The World Tree was not in a hurry and said, Master, you need to know that there is only one World Tree in a world. Without the World Tree, the origin cannot be gathered. Even if the other party refines a larger world, the old tree can still be preserved. There is no danger in this world. Hearing such a guarantee, Zuyun couldn't help but smile. That's the best. I'll leave this place to you. I have to go out to do some work. However, I will come in and take a look when I have time. After that, he glanced at Ergu, thought for a moment, and said, I'm taking Ergu away too, so I'll bother you to watch over here. After turning around and leaving, saying hello to the third dog again, Zuyun carried the second dog to the fairy mansion. Nujiao had already left, and he placed the two dogs on the bed in the bedroom. But Zuyun forgot one thing, the real magic knife was still in Ergu's hands, and this bedroom originally belonged to Nujiao, and she even hid in this bed. As soon as Zuyang left the house and sat on the edge of the void, countless strange black shadows swam out of the bed, rushed towards Ergu, and rushed into his body. After a long time, Zuyun opened his eyes, and his body was already full of spiritual power. Phew, it's time to go out and take a look, I've stayed here long enough. Calculating the time, it's more than half a year. Zuyun's body flashed and he appeared in the land of Jiyu. Feeling the familiar aura around him, he took a deep breath, then drew a magic talisman to collect his aura, and then used the immortality technique to run toward the outskirts of the Nine Netherlands. The target of this trip was the Xianguang section. There was a change in the time between the opening of the Ascension secret realm, and Zuyun didn't know it. And he also found a problem. Strange, where is the wood avatar? Why can't I feel his presence? Zuyun's face was extremely ugly. He immediately thought that the wood avatar must have encountered an accident. Now the spirit world is in chaos, and the demon moon sect is watching covetously in the dark. He doesn't know what the wood avatar has encountered. Forget it, don't worry about it for now, save go first. After running out of the dense forest of the Nine Netherworld, there was a clear road ahead. Zuyun no longer held his breath, and ran towards the edge of the sea with all his strength, intending to go along the coast to the immortal light section. As long as he refined the elixir, he could save go. Then, go find the wood avatar. He thought that it would take more than 2 years for the Ascension secret realm to open, but he didn't know that it would only take 5 months at most. At this moment, the 100 refining sect. The immortal soul hammer was pulled into the great universe island by the wood avatar, causing the dragon and phoenix to be weak in the future. And the 3 tribulation stages have a constant supply of 5 spirit pills. As one side gained strength while the other side lost strength, they gradually gained the upper hand. They have revealed their true form. I almost thought that this was the true Dragon King and the true Phoenix King. The 3 of them fought more and more bravely, and used all kinds of magical powers without hesitation. The Balian sect was like a catastrophe, with mountains collapsing and the ground cracking, and the momentum was extremely shocking. The Balian mountain, which stood against the sky, was also broken in half by the aftermath. Because there was no Balian sect guarding it, this cliff was no different from ordinary rocks, which also greatly boosted their confidence. It was just the Balian section compared with our 5 elements sect, the foundation was far behind. After we kill the dragon and phoenix souls, we will go into the 5 elements soul trapping array and see. The golden light just shone through it. It must be that the fairy treasure chose that person. Yes, that person was able to seize the control of our array, which shows that this person is not ordinary. Maybe he is the descendant of Senior Brother Sanren. Senior Brother Sanren is domineering and has hidden a lot of treasures over the years, but he didn't leave them to us, and he died in Ye Yuan's hands. He is the one who deserves to die. He clearly knows some secrets of the fairy world and what kind of situation he will encounter after ascending, but he didn't tell us. The 3 felt that they had won and started to talk. And all these words fell into the ears of Sun Qiniang and Mengwei. What should we do? The 2 looked at each other. They couldn't enter the array all the time. Finally, they had no choice but to watch from the side. It must be said that this battle benefited them a lot. But if they wait until the end of the battle, I'm afraid they will not be able to escape and ascend to heaven. In the tribulation crossing stage, even if there is only one breath and a trace of spiritual consciousness, they can be crushed to death. We can only retreat temporarily, Sun Qiniang said in a deep voice. Go find Longwu and ask him to activate the formation. Mengwei frowned and said, if there is a chance, Longwu will definitely activate it, but he has not made any move yet. I am afraid something unexpected has happened. Let's go and ask, but we don't know where the demon dragon is. Then find a demon saint and ask him to contact Longwu. The 2 did not have a formation map and did not know where the 12 demons were, so they could only try their luck. But just as they left from behind the 5 elements soul trapping formation, their figures were quickly discovered by the tribulation crossing stage people. There are actually 2 girls in the spirit transformation stage hidden. One of them said in amazement, but then he also reacted. It should be the 5 elements soul trapping formation that blocked them, and the 2 women deliberately suppressed their breath, so they did not find it. They are just in the spiritualization stage. If they lock their chi, I don't think they can get away. Another person said disdainfully that such ants can be easily killed. However, the dragon and phoenix souls also knew that they were at the end of their strength, so they made a final desperate counterattack. They couldn't be too careless. They couldn't free their hands for the time being, not even a trace of spiritual consciousness. Otherwise, even if they didn't die, they would be injured to some extent, which was not worth it. Feeling a powerful chi lock coming, Sun Qiniang's face changed, and she pushed Mengwei away, but let herself meet it. Wea, you go to the main hall first. After saying that, she drew her sword and slashed it in the air. Huh. The spiritual consciousness was actually cut off directly, and the chi also dissipated between heaven and earth. This sword technique surprised the three people in the tribulation stage. If you have some skills, why not keep her for the time being? A person in the tribulation stage thought of the missing Xianxia. A sword cultivator in the spiritualization stage can deal with a Xianxia in the spiritualization stage without risking their spiritual roots being suppressed. Their advantage lies in their realm and the endless supply of 5 spiritual pills. But for Xianxia, these are no threat at all. And the sword that Sun Qiniang just used was so strong that it was no problem to kill Xianxia, who was also in the spiritualization stage. Then I will control him first, and leave this to the 2 brothers. A tribulation stage cultivator understood and flashed away from the battle. Although the pressure on the other 2 people increased sharply, as long as they focused their attention, it was not a difficult task. In an instant, Sun Qiniang was like facing a great enemy. She tightly grasped the long sword in her hand and looked directly at the tribulation stage cultivator in front of her. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1234. Qiniang. Not far away, when Meng Wei came back to his senses, he suddenly discovered that there was an additional tribulation stage above Sun Qiniang's head, and he couldn't help but scream in horror. Little girl, you are not very old, but you are very courageous. Do you think you have lived long enough? He is the youngest among the 3 in this period of tribulation, but he is still nearly 10,000 years old. After he finished speaking, he tilted his head slightly and glanced at Meng Wei, who was approaching. To him, it doesn't matter whether there is one person more or one person less in this stage of transformation. But they never thought that although Sun Qiniang and Meng Wei were afraid of such strong men from the bottom of their hearts, they would still fight hard when they knew they couldn't run away. Today, this is the case. They may even be extra calm. Both Sun Qiniang and Meng Wei know that they should give their best. However, they need to wait for an opportunity, just like Zuyun, to take advantage of the other party's contempt and carelessness. Senior, I don't dare, I'm just passing by here and want to watch the fighting of several seniors and learn from it. Although Sun Qiniang was so frightened that her legs were weak, she was neither humble nor overbearing when she spoke. So, you are quite courageous. This tribulation stage shook his head and saw that Meng Wei was already standing beside Sun Qiniang. He raised his eyebrows slightly and said, Sword cultivator, the sword body, there is also a strange fire aura on the body. Little girl, there is still another breath of strange fire left in you. Could it be that you will also come from the fire veins that have been refined? The second sentence was said to Meng Wei. At this stage of transcending tribulation, I thought, these 2 people were in the stage of becoming gods, so they would be good at dealing with Xianxia. Don't dare. Meng Wei saw that the other party did not take action immediately, so he knew there was a chance, so he bowed and said without hesitation, back to Senior Qiniang, and I found out that there was no one in Balian sect, so we broke in. When the Balian sect refines magical weapons, they will receive an extra set of materials. I was wondering if I could hunt for treasures here. However, not long after I came in, I heard the sound of fighting. When I came out, I realized that it was a treasure hunt. The seniors showed great power here. After seeing their mysterious powers, I knew that this was a once-in-a-millennium opportunity, so I cautiously stayed to observe. But I didn't expect that the seniors would find us with such great powers. Existence. Ha ha ha, the tribulation stage laughed, and the laughter was full of contempt. You in the God transformation stage dare to watch me and the tribulation stage take action? We are not afraid that the aftermath of the spiritual power will turn you into powder. After saying that, he frowned again and said in a cold voice, there is still a use in keeping you, but I won't take your lives for the time being. After waving his hand and walking away, a stream of gray-white spiritual power split into two streams and pointed directly at the eyebrows of the two of them. The speed was so fast that they couldn't wait for their reaction. Mengwei and Sun Qiniang froze and fell straight to the ground. How could their incarnations be able to withstand the power of the tribulation period? Then, during this tribulation period, he returned to the other two people again and joined the battle. As the power was consumed and not replenished, the dragon and phoenix souls slowly turned back into phantoms again. After a while, the phantoms would disappear. On the isolated island of Dazhu, the wooden incarnation kept climbing up from the platform, only to be knocked down again by the immortal soul hammer. After many times of hard work, his soul gradually changed and became more and more solid. This is really painful and happy. Cultivation as an immortal would not be so smooth and boring in the first place. If you don't have a strong character, you may not be able to persevere. Every blow of the immortal soul hammer carries the power of destroying the heaven and the earth. If you have a bad character, you may worry whether the next blow will directly destroy the soul of the person. But Mujiawa has no worries, because he always looks at the essence of things through their appearance. Combining his understanding of the three words of Balian sect and what he saw before him, and being in this isolated island of the universe, he had already guessed that there must be some connection between the immortal soul hammer and the universe world, or in other words, with the original cosmic glazed mirror. And as the soul continued to solidify, he also realized clearly that the immortal soul hammer could not be an immortal weapon to create a mirror embryo. It is very likely that it belongs to the equipment in the Immortal Mansion's equipment refining room. However, it may have been left outside for some reason, and was finally acquired by the founder of the Balian sect, thus creating such a sect and thriving in the spiritual world. In other words, everything in Balian sect has a certain origin with the cosmic glazed mirror. There is nothing in the refining room, not to mention the materials used for refining. There is not even a fire in the stove. Mujiawa secretly thought, even if the immortal emperor does not know how to refine weapons in the weapon refining room of the dignified immortal emperor, he must still have the necessary immortal weapons. Just like, there is the chaos sword on the sword mountain, there is the fairy medicine in the medicine garden, and there is the sky fire in the weapon refining room. Under such a guess, Mujianing also guessed almost exactly. It's a pity that he is far away from the main body and is in different planes at this time, unable to sense each other's position. First, Zuyun was in the Great Universe Immortal Mansion, and then he went to the Great Universe world. But the two worlds are actually far apart. After another moment, something suddenly happened to the hammer. When a hammer failed to crush the soul that was transformed into wood, the hammer no longer fell, and it just hung in the golden light. The wooden incarnation suddenly raised his head and saw that the hammer began to rotate in place, from slow to fast, and soon turned into a ball of golden light, and then slowly fell down. Finally, it fell into the hands of Mu incarnation. The golden light is as solid as substance, and this is the first time that the wooden incarnation has come into contact with the immortal soul hammer. Huh! Feeling the heavy texture, the wood incarnation was slightly stunned. For some reason, an idea came to his mind, to bite through his fingertips and drip his blood. But his teeth bit into nothing, and he suddenly reacted and laughed at himself. I am still the soul. Even if it is condensed into a physical body, it is still the soul. Then, he frowned. This immortal soul hammer obviously has the intention of recognizing its master. How to refine it? The immortal weapon that can temper the soul, even if it is just an immortal weapon, is a rare treasure in the spirit world. Don't worry about it for now, let the soul go out and return to the body to see. I don't know how the fight outside is going. He raised his head and squinted slightly. No wonder the dragon and phoenix souls can fight against the three tribulation period. It is the immortal soul hammer that constantly tempers them and provides them with soul power continuously, just like those tribulation period taking the 5 spirit pills. With the thought, the wood incarnation left the universe world, and the Yuan Shen also returned to his place. He sat up from the ground, but there was nothing in his hand. Immortal soul hammer. He whispered in his heart, and the hammer appeared in his hand, with golden light rising into the sky. Isn't this too loud? The wood incarnation touched his nose, and saw that the 3 tribulation stages were also attracted by the golden light here, and the dragon and phoenix souls roared hysterically. Ang! Clang! The roar revealed endless joy. Not only did the wood incarnation hear it, but even the 3 tribulation stages were suddenly shocked. Quick battle and quick decision. The hammer was obviously gone just now, and it appeared again. Be careful of changes. This hammer seems to have some connection with the kid who took the 5 elements soul trapping array. The 3 people secretly thought it was not right. The hammer was weird, but although they had a lot of 5 spirit pills, they were also accumulated over countless years, and there were only a few pills a month. If you use too much, you don't know when you can make up for it. Immediately, the 3 of them frantically controlled the spiritual power in their bodies and used the Chaos Fist. But after using it, there are only 24 moves? The wood incarnation saw it clearly and grinned, and threw the immortal soul hammer towards the dragon and phoenix souls. When the immortal soul hammer was used, it kept spinning and flew into the air along the golden light. When it reached its original position, it stopped again and began to hit the dragon and phoenix souls again. Ding! 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 As the hammer sounded, the dragon and phoenix souls' momentum soared, and the situation was reversed. From being at a disadvantage, it slowly turned into a draw. Alas, I can't participate in this kind of fight, but I should also walk out of the formation and find a way to lure them in, and then use the Dozhuan Xinyi formation. The wood incarnation has his own calculations in his mind. These 3 tribulation stage masters are extremely strong. Even if they are weaker than the 5 elements wanderer, they are probably not much weaker. They can be said to be the 3 strongest people in the spirit world. It is not difficult to lead them into the formation, the key is whether they can not attack me in the process of entering the mountain gate. Retracting his gaze, the wood incarnation was suddenly shocked. I saw 2 familiar bodies lying on the ground outside the 5 elements soul trapping formation. It was Menguia and Sun Qiniang. What happened? He knew that it must be the work of these 3 people in the tribulation period, but he did not know the specific process. But it is not important, the important thing is that they can't get into trouble. The dragon and phoenix souls seem to be able to hold on for a while, let's talk about it later, let's see Qiniang and Wei. Fortunately, the 2 were at the edge of the formation wall, and the wood incarnation flashed and rushed over, holding one person's foot with one hand, and dragged them into the formation. Feeling that they were just unconscious, the wood incarnation was relieved, thinking that these people in the tribulation period must have freed up their hands to do it. If you can kill them but don't, it's obvious that you want to use them, but how can you use 2 people in the transformation of spirits in the crossing tribulation stage? The wood incarnation pondered for a while and figured out the key. Xianxia. But what about Xianxia? And what about the ability to ride? 100 refining fire veins. The wood incarnation stood up suddenly, his eyes shining. Xianxia in the transformation of spirits can suppress the Mahayana stage. If she can make a breakthrough in the 100 refining fire veins and reach the void refining stage, maybe she can control these 3 people in the crossing tribulation stage. No matter what, kill these 3 people in the crossing tribulation stage first. As for the ability to ride, at that time, at most, let Longwu take action. As long as there is no powerful person from the 5 elements sect here, Xianxia can't make any waves at all. Thinking of this, the wood incarnation waved his hand and took the 2 women into the great universe island, while he was thinking about countermeasures. There are priorities, and we need to distinguish the primary and secondary. At this moment, only the three people in the crossing tribulation stage are the most dangerous. The earth-changing talisman on the body of the wood incarnation had long lost its effectiveness in the successive changes. In such an emergency, he did not think much, or did not think about it. The demon dragon is in the master's hall, but I can go to the demon rabbit position that is closest to it first. Carefully recalling the mountain protection formation he had arranged, the wood incarnation's eyes flashed with a gleam, and he rushed out. But he did not expect that as soon as he left the formation, a completely different pressure from the three tribulation crossing period fell from the sky and locked directly on him. It's Chen Nang. Isn't he with Xianxia? I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1235. Boy, I've been eyeing you for a long time. Chen Neng sneered, feeling that the wood incarnation was somewhat familiar, but looking at his face, he was extremely unfamiliar. It turned out that after he took the opportunity to escape from the Balian fire vein, he found that the three tribulation elders and the dragon and phoenix souls were fighting together. He couldn't get involved in such a fight at all. Even if he flew out, he might attract the attention of the dragon and phoenix, and then kill him in one fell swoop. So, he also found a ladder on the side, climbed up the ladder, circled around and hid aside, and saw one of the tribulation elders stunned Mengwei and Sun Qiniang. Naturally, the tribulation elder had long discovered the aura he had locked on Chen Nang, and thought that he could use him as a hidden chess piece to calculate the wood incarnation in the formation, so he communicated with him through voice transmission and gave some instructions, asking him to pay attention to the fact that there was a male cultivator of the divine transformation hidden in the formation. Sure enough, this kid came out. But he didn't expect that the wood incarnation would be related to the two women, so when the wood incarnation went out for the first time to drag Mengwei and the others in, he didn't react. It can be seen that when he heard the explanations of the two women before, he was probably plotting something bad. However, Chen Neng also knew that the two women were the most important chess pieces to kill Xianxia, and they must not be killed, otherwise the ancestor would just knock them out. As for this male cultivator? Chen Neng sneered, and the overwhelming pressure came down. Before it arrived, the momentum had already suppressed the wood incarnation and almost made it difficult for him to breathe. Whoosh! When the wood incarnation was about to be crushed into a ball of meat, a sound of breaking air came from not far away, and a fear rose from Chinyan's heart. Chen Nang, be careful. The three tribulation ancestors shouted together, but it was too late. Chen Nang turned his head, and the golden light had already rushed to his face. The immortal soul hammer smashed down on Chinyan's forehead. Ding! 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 Chen Neng felt as if his soul was struck by lightning and fell from mid-air, no longer breathing. The wood incarnation finally regained control of his body. He wanted to take the opportunity to run towards the depths of the mountain gate, but those people in the tribulation period also chased here. It was too late to escape again. Without saying a word, he hid back in the five elements soul trapping array. This kid keeps ruining our good things. Kill him first. The three of them were so angry that their eyes were red. The wood incarnation first took away their formation, and then refined the immortal soul hammer to help the dragon and phoenix souls turn the situation around. Apart from anything else, they spent a lot of 5 spirit pills just to kill the two souls. Not to mention, they made a bigger noise at this time, and perhaps alarmed Xianxia. Chen Neng told them that Xianxia had entered the depths of the fire vein, probably to refine the fire vein and break through. If she really succeeded, the three of them in the tribulation period would probably have to leave their homes and hide. At this moment, they turned all their hatred into anger and transferred it all to the wood incarnation. In order to withstand the pressure of the energy, the wood incarnation drove the immortal soul hammer to strike hard. Even though the energy hammer dissipated the soul and became a walking corpse, after all, The immortal soul hammer had just been refined and the wood incarnation was not familiar with it. This strike exhausted the power of the immortal soul hammer. After the strike, the immortal soul hammer also turned into a golden light again and sank into the eyebrows of the wood incarnation. Escape first. The wood incarnation knew his current situation, and the only thing he could rely on was the 5 elements soul trapping array. In this array, he could still maneuver for a while, but for a long time. If the opponent had enough 5 spirit pills, and this array was set up by them, they could grind it open. The delaying tactic with nowhere to go was ultimately a dead end, and the wood incarnation needed to find a way to break the deadlock. But it seemed that there was no way out at the moment. Boom. 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 Without the support of the immortal soul hammer, the dragon and phoenix souls were just ordinary weapon spirits. In addition, they had suffered a lot of damage before. How could they be the opponents of these 3 people? They ignored it and used all their chaos palms as if they were facing the top of Balian Peak. All the spiritual power was exhausted and blasted on the wall of the big array. They actually want to break it by force. In the array, the wood incarnation frowned and finally stood firm without falling. These 3 people are too strong and have not held back. The formation does not have much protective effect. The chance of breaking it by force is very high. No, I will die if the formation is broken. The wood incarnation was breathing rapidly and his body was shaking constantly. Was he going to use the teleportation array to escape? But if so, I am afraid that the whole month's arrangement will fail, and the situation in the 5 elements sect is expected to change. Looking at the long term, it may even affect the Ascension secret realm. He didn't know the situation of his original body yet, and was afraid that he would not be able to meet his original body again in the secret realm. What should I do? Watching the 5 elements soul trapping array shaking continuously, the wood incarnation was helpless. These were all arranged with top-grade spirit stones. Even if he wanted to repair them, he didn't have the corresponding spirit stones on him. If he rashly put in the middle-grade spirit stones, it would be more likely to destroy the array faster due to the difference in the strength of the spiritual power. I'm not willing to accept this. The wood incarnation gritted his teeth and muttered to himself, but he unconsciously took out the teleportation array order in his hand and held it tightly in his hand. If he used the array, he could wait here for a little longer. Even if he activated the array order when the array was destroyed, it would be in time. At this moment, the dragon and phoenix souls knew that they were powerless. They clearly felt that the immortal soul hammer had lost its effectiveness. In addition to being unable to provide them with a steady stream of soul power, they also lost control of their beast souls. Run. The 2 souls looked at each other and turned away without hesitation. The pressure on the 3 tribulation stages was suddenly relieved, and they bombarded the 5 elements soul trapping array without distraction. The vibration became stronger and stronger, and cracks appeared on the cliffs of the Balian sect. Countless boulders rolled down from the top of the mountain, as if to fill up the abyss. Below, Xianxia's eyes were full of fear. Could it be that he would be buried alive here too? It's fate after all. The magic knife in his hand suddenly sighed faintly. It was Lian Changfeng. Brother, Xianxia said with a wry smile, I thought I could escape, but in the end, this is the result. When in the fire vein cave, Xianxia initially thought he would die, but after a twist of fate, Mengwei and Sun Qiniang chose to take them out. But in order to prevent them from getting into danger again, they stayed here. Who would have thought that as soon as they came out, they saw the 3 great men who had crossed the tribulation and the dragon and phoenix souls fighting each other, and in the end, the 2 souls were defeated and fled in a hurry. It's good that way, Lian Changfeng's spirit appeared from the magic knife and sighed, buried with the section. When a person is about to die, his words are good. The 2 simply sat cross-legged and stood opposite each other, recalling and reflecting on the past. It was more like old friends who had not seen each other for many years, talking freely, completely ignoring the huge rocks falling down. Although Xianxia was seriously injured, his body was still the strength of the Mahayana period. These huge rocks could not hurt him, and at most caused some shock to his flesh. As for Lian Changfeng, that was even more impossible. Soon, the abyss became a flat land, and the top of Balian Mountain also became a flat land. And the five elements soul-trapping array was about to break. The wood incarnation sighed, it was time to leave, it was really a bit unwilling. He circulated his spiritual power and prepared to inject it into the array order. Boom! Suddenly, a loud noise suddenly exploded in the direction of the Balian cliff. The wood incarnation was startled, and the three tribulation crossing ancestors also quickly looked over there, and their faces suddenly changed. I saw a huge fire dragon surging from the ground. The fire dragon seemed to have been sleeping underground for a long time, and was finally awakened by these people. It opened its eyes wide, opened its huge mouth and showed its dragon teeth, and the dragon whiskers on both sides kept swinging. Just the corner of the eye made the three tribulation crossing stage terrified. Xianxia, it must be Xianxia. A tribulation crossing stage screamed. As soon as the words fell, the eyes of the fire dragon shone with golden light, which was exactly the same as when Xianxia used the soul method. Looking again, the dragon scales on the fire dragon were actually flowing slowly from the dragon head to the dragon tail. How could this be a fire dragon? This is clearly the 100 refining fire veins. Ha ha ha, the refining void stage, I broke through to the refining void stage. Xianxia's sharp and crazy laughter resounded through the sky. I didn't expect that the five elements sect also hid three tribulation ancestors. If you had attacked me before, I would have had no power to fight back. Unfortunately, you gave me a chance. This voice actually came out of the dragon's mouth. The wood incarnation was also extremely frightened. He knew a little about the realm of the refining void stage, which is to focus on the cultivation of the Yuan Shen. After practicing to the extreme, the Yuan Shen and the physical body merge into one, which is a successful breakthrough. As the name suggests, it is the fusion stage. But generally speaking, the general method of cultivation in the spiritualization stage is to condense the primordial spirit into an incarnation, and then let the incarnation practice continuously. But Xianxia, it has only been a short time, and she has reached this level. Is it related to the 5 elements Chaos Sutra or the 100 refining fire veins? Looking at the 3 panicked tribulation stages, the wood incarnation calmed down instead. Chen Neng did not recognize him before, so he also knew that he had revealed his true face. Maybe. There is no need to go back. He quietly stepped back 2 steps, turned his back, and while no one was paying attention to him, he quickly drew a talisman to change the world. In a hurry, he only thought of changing to someone who had never appeared in the spirit world and who Xianxia did not know. Zhu Feng. The wood incarnation disguised himself as Zhu Feng. So what if you are in the tribulation crossing stage? As long as you have 5 spiritual roots, you will be suppressed by me. You are all ants in the heavenly book of immortal souls. As these words fell, the fire dragon spun on the spot, and countless dragon scales stopped flowing and began to shrink. After a while, there was no more fire dragon in the sky, but a female cultivator in a fiery red dragon robe. Xianxia. Xianxia in the void refining stage. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1236. The sky changed color, and Xianxia stood on the ground like a setting sun that suddenly fell, with a deep red light. He was less than 100 feet away from the 3 tribulation stage. But the golden light in his eyes was like substance, and the pressure from the depths of the soul was chilling. Plop. 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 The 3 tribulation stages, their bodies were out of control, and they all knelt on the ground, without any resistance at all. The face of the wood incarnation changed drastically. He had thought that Xianxia's strength would definitely increase after the breakthrough. But he didn't expect it to increase to this extent. But because the wood incarnation only revealed the wood spirit power, and was only at the stage of the spiritualization stage, Xianxia didn't think he was a threat, so he didn't take him seriously, but slowly stepped forward and walked in front of the 3 tribulation stages. Meet the sect master. The 3 people said in unison, their voices and bodies trembling together. Sect master. Xianxia raised her voice, and then laughed crazily. Ha ha ha, sect master, sect master. Am I the sect master of the 5 elements sect? While speaking, her facial features twisted together, and she suddenly raised her hand and swung it down. Pa! The delicate palm slapped the 3 people in the face. You followed me to the Balian sect just to attack me. Seeing Chen Nang suddenly escape, and now his soul was completely destroyed and only a flesh body was left on the ground, she didn't need to think too much to know the purpose of these 3 people coming here. There are still 3 people in the tribulation stage in the 5 elements sect, which really surprised her. But after her breakthrough, this is a pleasant surprise. There are 3 people in the tribulation stage following me in the immortal secret realm, and all the natural treasures in them are obtained by me. Thinking of this, Xianxia couldn't help laughing wildly. This kind of scene was once a fantasy for her, but now it has become an extremely real thing. The wood incarnation was not far away, and he did not dare to make any move. Although the 3 tribulation stage masters had not yet attacked him, Xianxia did not take him seriously. But the wood incarnation knew that his situation was even more dangerous. Now, there were only 2 choices. One was to use the teleportation array command immediately, escape back to the 5 elements sect, and then escape from the 5 elements sect. The other was, to fight and rush to the mountain gate. But the problem was that if the 3 tribulation stage masters would catch up, then he could activate the Dozhuan Xinyi formation and fight with the 3. But if Xianxia wanted to take advantage of his strength to test him, the consequences would be unimaginable. Not to mention that Xianxia's realm was higher than his now, but at this time, Xianxia's every move exerted an invisible pressure on him, so the wood incarnation had to deal with it carefully. This already showed that Xianxia's heavenly book soul method would more or less suppress his incarnation. If the Dozhuan Xinyi formation was activated and Xianxia was killed, then the 3 people in the crossing tribulation stage would be pardoned and would certainly not let him go. At the same time, the formation was his only backup, and the 3 people would not be lured into it again. It seems that I can only run away temporarily. The wood incarnation gritted his teeth. Only in this way could he not only ensure his own safety, but also save the 12 demon saints. This is a more reliable response strategy. Thinking of this, he suddenly activated his spiritual power, took out the formation order, and poured all of it into it. Xianxia felt it immediately when the spiritual power moved. She raised her head slightly and noticed that the wood incarnation who was almost killed by the 3 crossing tribulation stages. But she didn't know Zhu Feng, and felt that he looked familiar, so she didn't attack directly, but said lightly, "You want to attack me?" She didn't recognize the teleportation formation order in the wood incarnation's hand, but the 3 crossing tribulation stages knew it, and their faces changed immediately. How could the relics of the 5 elements wanderer appear in this boy's hands? But before they could decide whether to remain silent or remind Xianxia to show their flattery, the figure of the wood incarnation began to turn into a shadow and then faded. As long as the Green Mountains remain, there is no fear of running out of firewood. See you later, ha ha ha. After the words fell, the wood incarnation instantly disappeared from the spot. but his voice was still echoing in the ruins of the Balian sect. What kind of magic is this? Xianxia's face changed. She didn't expect that a person in the god transformation stage would escape. She was furious in her heart, but the three people in the tribulation stage had to bear it. The golden light in their eyes was so strong that the three people who knelt on the ground felt that their souls were hit hard. Reply to the sect master, this is the spiritual tool used for teleportation. One of them was overwhelmed and hysterically said a sentence intermittently. He was afraid that if he didn't divert Xianxia's attention, he would be suppressed to death by Xianxia. Teleportation spirit weapon. Sure enough, Xianxia's beautiful eyes condensed, the golden light retracted into her eyes, full of doubt. Yes, this sect master, we have seen such things appear in the spirit world. When activated, they will be teleported to a certain place, but we don't know where to go. Another person in the tribulation crossing stage spoke up, and he chose to conceal some facts. They still want the relics of the five elements wanderer, and it is impossible for them to tell Xianxia. Don't you know? Xianxia sneered slightly, but did not expose her. She was also a scheming person. At this time and place, it was not suitable to torture several people with soul magic. As long as they are firmly controlled, there will be plenty of time to ask questions later. Then the god transformation stage ran away, but he left a message. What does it mean? At this time, Xianxia was more concerned about the unnecessary behavior of the wood incarnation. She did not know him, and he was just familiar with him. Not sure, they did see that the wood incarnation had changed his appearance, and thought that he should know Xianxia. As for the message, maybe he deliberately confused us so that we can't find him in the future. No matter how these people guessed, they could not imagine that the words of the wood incarnation were left for Longwu and others. Xianxia did not stay for too long. He was just a god transformation stage. He ran away. Could it be that he could break through to the strength of dealing with 3 tribulation stages before ascending to the immortal secret realm? Then let's go. The sect master, should also go back to the sect. After that, she stepped into the void, with dark red flames all over her body, standing in the air. The 3 people understood, lowered their eyebrows and followed closely. An hour later, 12 demon saints suddenly walked out of the Dozhuan Xinyi formation. Zuyun may feel that it is not appropriate to take action. Longwu frowned. They had communicated this once in the formation. Yeah, who would have thought that this would suddenly change? Lao Jin sighed. He was not far away, hiding in the formation and watching everything that happened outside. Then where should we go? Go back to Yaoang Valley to find Master Hu, or let's stay here for the time being. Who knows when Zhu Xian will come back to find us? And the formation here has not been activated yet, and it may be useful in the future. Now that the pillars outside the mountain gate have been destroyed and this place has been razed to the ground, there may be other casual cultivators coming here to search for treasures. Yes, if someone is blind and destroys the formation here, it will not be a good thing. The demon saints talked and looked at a certain place together, with an inexplicable look, but they finally made a decision. The wood incarnation left, but the big dog stayed. As for Lian Changjiu and Lian Changfeng buried underground, they didn't know. Is this the 5 elements sect? In a forest, the wood incarnation looked around, feeling that his body was suppressed to the nascent soul stage, and felt it was incredible. The forest was full of fog, so he had to be alert to avoid potential crises. On the other side of the back mountain of the 5 elements sect, there was indeed a forest, but there was no fog. But fortunately, he used the wood spirit pearl as his dantian, and the forest was like his home court. What made him uneasy now was that his strength was suppressed without any signs. Could it be that the 5 elements wanderer lied to me? But it would not do him any good to lie to me. It's not even a soul, only a trace of remnant thoughts. If he wants to live, he can only rely on me. The wood incarnation was very sure that the remnant thoughts of the five elements wanderer had no motive to deceive himself, which was a behavior that harmed others and did not benefit himself. If he wanted to harm me, he would have done it in the five elements soul trapping array. Why would he use the array order to lure me and teleport me somewhere else? But this place looks less and less like the five elements sect. More importantly, if he could suppress it, why didn't he just suppress it and become immortal, and still leave the strength of the nascent soul stage? The wood incarnation was completely puzzled, but after knowing that it was not intentional by the five elements wanderer, he began to think about why it was so. According to the five elements wanderer, you only need to condense your spiritual power into it to be teleported to the back mountain, and there are no other requirements. So, the problem is with me. The wood incarnation could only guess this, because he was just an incarnation, and although his soul had reached the soul transformation stage, it was not complete after all. Forget it, let's go and see first. He concentrated his mind, and then carefully released his spiritual consciousness. After finding that there was no danger, he began to run in one direction. He didn't dare to fly rashly. Although he could see through the fog with the breaking void spirit eyes technique, it would consume his spiritual power to some extent. If he encountered danger, he was afraid that he would not have enough strength to deal with it. But after running for several hours, he did not find any signs of living beings, and he couldn't help but get nervous. Could it be that he had arrived at a deadly place? The spiritual world is very large. In addition to the outer world, the five elements sect and the nine netherworld, there are many places he has never been to. It is said to be a wasteland. Could it be that this is a mountain forest in the wasteland? There is an oasis in the desert. It seems not difficult to understand that there is a mountain forest in the wasteland. But after running for several days, the patience of the wood incarnation was almost exhausted. He finally couldn't help but use the breaking void spirit eyes technique. At this glance, he saw outside the mountain forest a charred land with cracks on the ground. From time to time, the fire of the ground veins gushed out, but it also dissipated immediately. He was very familiar with this scene. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 1237. Could it be that I have arrived in Chuzhu? The wood incarnation muttered to himself. Such a familiar scene, coupled with the fact that he was suppressed to the nascent soul stage without any signs, did have a little bit of a sense of harmony. But where exactly in Chuzhu was this place, he didn't know. He had walked in Chuzhu for a while, but had never seen mountains and forests, except for the 100,000 mountains. But the 100,000 mountains had never been heard of fog. If it was Chuzhu, it would be okay, at least I could go to the Peepa realm and then return to the spirit realm. And the passage there is close to the heavenly world, so I can also go to Huchang and get the soul transferring grass. The wood incarnation whispered as he walked towards that place. But after a moment, he only felt that his figure passed through a transparent barrier, and his body suddenly became lighter, and a hot and dry breeze came towards him. Chuzhu, it's really Chuzhu. The wood incarnation was surprised and happy, but then his expression froze again. What he just passed through was a ray wall. Looking back, the forest was still the same forest. But the breaking void spirit eye technique he used could no longer see through it. Strange, you can see outside from the inside, but you can't see inside from the outside. What is so mysterious about this forest? Why have I never heard of such a place in Chuzhu before? When he first came to Chuzhu, he met Li Mo. Although Li Mo was devoted to cultivation, the Liwo sect was still a well-known sect in Chuzhu. Even if Li Mo is not here, Xiahuo will do. Unfortunately, after Xiahuo went to the spirit world, I never met him. The wood incarnation couldn't help but sigh, so he had to withdraw his gaze and continue to look at the front. In Chuzhu, he was basically in no danger, so he took off into the air and spread his spiritual consciousness around. But after a moment, his face was extremely strange. There was no impact in front of him, but the forest behind him was rolling and his spiritual consciousness couldn't penetrate at all. But what is certain is that he is in Chuzhu. Forget it for now. If you want to go in, just don't use this formation order when you grow up. The wood incarnation looked at the position of the sun, confirmed his direction, thought about it, and decided to go south. Logically, this is the land of Chinen. If you cross the sea, you can return to Yunzhou. Wait, I remember. Suddenly, the wood incarnation exclaimed, and his figure in mid-air suddenly stagnated. Yunzhou is adjacent to Chuzhu, but why cross the sea? That's because the two states are separated by a huge misty forest. In the early years, Yunzhou had such a rumor that the misty forest was one of the forbidden areas of Yezhu. There is no way out, and there is death and no life. Thinking of this, the wood incarnation was stunned. He actually walked out of the forbidden area? Then why would the formation order be transmitted to this place? There must be some mystery in this. However, instead of guessing it myself, I might as well ask Wuxing Sanren in the future. But the problem is, how will the three people in the tribulation period surrender to Xianxia? Will they break into Wuxing Sanren's cave under Xianxia's coercion? Forget it, no matter what, if I get it, I'm lucky, if I lose it, I'm dead. If I care about gains and losses like this, I'm afraid I won't live to this day. The wood incarnation escaped death and became open-minded. Thinking back to the past, once the secret realm was mentioned, he was reluctant to go there. Although he gained something every time, I don't know where he started to care about gains and losses. It's a demon, it's a demon. He slapped his head suddenly, and a little sweat came out on his back. If he wasn't worried about the crisis, he might not be able to break free from it. Greed is one of the biggest original sins in the way of cultivating immortals. With a sigh, the wood incarnation flew towards Chunan's land. He planned to return to Yunzhou and Huangshi Mountain. Decades had passed, and the people he knew in the village were probably gone. Even his father and his second wife, if you calculate the time, may have been sent away by Zhu Feng. So, he was going back to Huangshi Mountain, but not to the village. Instead, he was going to the teleportation array that inexplicably teleported him to Chuzhu. In addition to this array, there was also a teleportation array at the foot of Wanjian Mountain. Although he had never comprehended this array, he copied the array patterns at that time, and they were almost the same. Perhaps, this is also related to the teleportation array order. In addition, his attainments in the art of array have improved a lot, and perhaps he can see through the array order from it and find out some mysteries. If he can study it thoroughly, maybe this array order can teleport him to wherever he wants to go in the future. He believed that the teleportation array order would have such a magical effect, otherwise, why would Wuxing Sanren say that it could allow him to return to Wuxing sect? However, Wuxing Sanren also said that this array order cannot be used in Tianhui Tian. Could it be that Tianhui Tian has some kind of restriction on the function of teleportation array order? The key to this is unknown, and Mu Huashen will not think about it for the time being. Soon, Mu Huashen flew to the land of Chunan and came to the Savage Sea. Whether in Yunzhou, Chuzhu, or in the spirit world, the Savage Sea looks the same as always, with the sound of the waves constantly hitting the reefs. Mu Huashen's heart suddenly calmed down, and he began to think about the geographical relationship between the spirit world and the four mortal worlds. The four mortal worlds guard the spirit world in the center, which means, the other side of the sea is the spirit world. Thinking about it, but the wood incarnation felt that things were far from that simple. A world star that was only yellow level in the fairy world was related to several great immortals. I always feel that I have talked about something, and I can't explain it clearly. I just hope that I am not being used. The wood incarnation smiled bitterly, and then took off into the air and flew across the sea again. His mood at this time was completely different. He flew close to the coast and couldn't help but look over there. A piece of fog actually extended straight into the sea. Maybe it's because of the high tide. He couldn't see through the fog, even if he used the breaking void spirit eyes technique. As for the spirit eyes technique, it consumes too much spiritual power and is not suitable for this time. Anyway, Yunzhou is also connected to the foggy forest. When the time comes, it's okay to look back and take another look. After a long time, the wood incarnation felt that the spiritual power around him suddenly became less, and he knew that he had come to the territory of Yunzhou. He continued to fly forward until the misty forest on the coast no longer continued, and then he landed from the shore. Behind him was the misty forest, but he found a village not far away. The village was quite lively, with people coming and going, cars and horses, just like the barren stone mountain at that time. Could it be that there are still people in this village who can go into the misty forest to collect herbs and search for treasures? While walking in the forest, the wood incarnation found a lot of spiritual medicines, hundreds of years old, which was considered rare. However, these spiritual medicines were not rare, and he could completely cultivate them through the Immortal Palace, so he didn't go to collect them. Yunzhou's spiritual power was only enough for a cultivator to break through to the foundation building stage at most. The wood incarnation would never be in danger, so he simply didn't bother to restrain his breath and walked over there carelessly. The direction here was about 500 or 600 miles away from the Spirit Sword sect. There is no rush for the moment. Maybe I can learn something about the misty forest from them. He walked while his eyes swept over. The monks and mortals can be distinguished from each other by the clothing style. There is no need to look carefully. But soon, his face became strange again. I saw that in the center of the village, there was a 2-meter-high statue, and many villagers were worshipping there devoutly. In front of the statue, there was a table plated with gold powder, on which there was an incense burner with incense in the incense burner. In addition, there were many offerings, the most conspicuous of which was a big pig's head. There were more people passing by the statue, but no matter whether they were going in or out, they would bow from a distance when they passed by. What the hell are those people doing? They even set up a statue for me in a remote mountain village like Yunzhou. The wood incarnation twitched his mouth. Yes, he saw the face of the statue. Who else could it be but himself? He did not stop and walked into the village. When the monks saw the unfamiliar face, they all smiled and nodded. As for the villagers, they would bow slightly to show respect to the monks. Mu Huashan was extremely grateful that he was now in the appearance of Zhu Feng. Otherwise, if he was still in his original appearance, he didn't know whether these people would think that he was a real immortal. He touched his nose and finally stood in front of the sculpture. Looking at the lifelike self, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. These people. While sighing, he couldn't help but shake his head twice. But who would have thought that this unintentional action seemed to have angered everyone, and the atmosphere around him suddenly stagnated. Then, all the monks surrounded him almost at the same time. One of the late foundation building cultivators, with a long sword hanging from his waist, said coldly, "Daiyu, you are disrespectful to Xianxia, what do you mean?" Yes, another foundation building female cultivator stood up, holding a magic weapon in her hand, and said crisply, "Even if we can't see through your cultivation level, we are outnumbered and may not be afraid of you." Although this Haishan village is a remote place, it also belongs to Yunzhou. Xianxia started to cultivate immortals in Yunzhou. If someone shakes his head in front of Xianxia's golden body, if this is spread out, we Yunzhou cultivators will lose face. The cultivators said one after another, all of them scolded the previous unintentional behavior of the wood incarnation. Of course, their realm was too low, and they could not imagine the realm of the wood incarnation at all, which was a realm that they could not see through even if they looked up at the sky. This is the transformation of the spirit. Hearing these people's words, Mu Huashan laughed in silence, but suddenly said to the sword-wielding female cultivator, "Are you from the Spirit Sword sect? Now that you know I'm from the Spirit Sword sect, why don't you kneel down and confess to Xian?" The woman danced a sword flower, which turned out to be the spirit sword art of the Spirit Sword sect. The incarnation of wood laughed and said, "What's your name?" "My name is Yu Lingshan, I'm not afraid of you." The woman's words made the incarnation of wood touch his nose and said, "Yu Lingshan? Then your father is, Yu Yulin. You know my father." Yu Lingshan was not surprised, and snorted coldly, "Since you know my father, you should know that no matter how high your realm is, I will not be afraid of you." The incarnation of wood sighed and said, "So, your mother is Zhou Yu." Yu Lingshan finally heard the hidden meaning of the incarnation of wood, and suddenly shook the long sword, pointed directly at the incarnation of wood, and shouted, "Who are you? Why do you know the names of my parents so well?" The incarnation of wood laughed and said loudly, "I am your uncle. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1238. "You, why are you swearing?" Yu Lingshan's pretty face suddenly turned red, her chest heaved violently, and the hand holding the sword kept shaking. She is the daughter of Yu Yulin and Zhou Yu. She is considered a queen of a famous family in Yunzhou. People around her treat her with great respect. Have you ever seen someone like Mu Zhenhua speak so directly and vulgarly? On the other hand, if Zuyun really wants to be reckoned with, he is still a country boy who has been walking around barefoot in the barren Rocky Mountains since he was a child, and he keeps getting into trouble. If his true nature is revealed, who knows that he will become Zhu Xian in the mortal world? "I'm not swearing," Mu Jiahua laughed and said, "You also have an uncle named Ergu. His real name is Zhou Huanghua, right? You actually know my uncle." Yu Lingshan was shocked. Not many people knew about this. She has never even seen it, but only heard her parents say it word by word. Mu Jiahua touched his chin and chuckled, "Logically speaking, you can call me uncle, but well, it's not wrong for me to be your uncle." Mu Jiahua touched his body and took out a few pieces of medium-grade spirit stones. He threw them over and said, "Just think of it as a meeting gift for you. Don't be reckless in the future. Fortunately, you met me, otherwise, other monks may not be so easy to talk to." At this point, his face suddenly turned cold and he continued, "You may even be dead." After all, he couldn't help but wonder in his heart, when did Zhou Yu and Yu get together and give birth to such a big daughter? It had been less than 20 years since he first went to the spirit world. But I have to say that this little niece is not weak in talent. Impossible. Yu Lingshan was originally unwilling to accept these spiritual stones. It was not like she had never seen them before, but when she felt that the spiritual energy revealed on these spiritual stones was particularly strong and completely different from what she had seen before, she took it again by mistake, but still retorted, saying, "Those monks in the mortal world with evil intentions will be hunted down by a group of seniors, and it is impossible for them to mess around. We in Yunzhou still talk about there are rules. Otherwise, Zhu Xian will punish you." After saying that, she pointed to the golden body with a pious expression. Mu Jiajia was speechless, thinking about the good deeds he had done in the past, which could lead to such changes in the mortal world. Although it was expected, he did not expect such a degree. He is aware that some sects have erected statues for him in Yezhu, or in Yusha realm and other places, but Yunzhou has not been affected at all, but it has been affected by this. I heard from my mother that Zhu Xian is amazing. We in the mortal world have such a peaceful cultivation atmosphere now because of her gift. Seeing Mu Jiahua's expression, Mu Jiahua was secretly amused, but he had no time to dwell on it, so he simply said, "Let's not talk about it anymore." Are you gathering so many monks here to enter the misty mountain forest? Yu Lingshan nodded and said, I came out with some Taoist friends to practice and collect some elixirs. Very few monks go into this misty mountain forest, so let's come over and explore. I don't know what else we can gain. The wooden incarnation just came out of it, but I didn't think there was any danger. At most, it was just a fog, which suddenly made people unable to find their direction and lost them. But seeing the size of this mountain village, which seemed to rely on collecting spiritual medicine for a living, I couldn't help but ask, the monks can't enter, but what about these mortals? Mortals will not be affected by the fog, but they know few elixirs, and the older elixirs are deep in the mountains and forests, and they cannot go too far. So this time, several Taoist friends and I plan to find some. Let a mortal be your guide and lead us into it. Mujiawa thought for a while and said, it's okay to go in, but you must pay attention to safety. By the way, are these people also from the Spirit Sword sect? Mujiawa looked at those people with different auras and asked. Senior, except for Fairy Yu, we are all monks from the Wangxian sect in the north of Yunzhou. One of the most mature-looking foundation-building monks said. Wangxian sect. Mujiawa raised his eyebrows. If he remembers correctly, there were only 2 monks left in the Wangxian sect at that time, and they all seemed to have died in the Zilang secret realm. How can it still be passed down? Senior is so powerful that he must know the past of Wangxian sect. But we are not orthodox members of Wangxian sect. Wangxian sect was destroyed for unknown reasons back then, leaving only the ruins of a Lingshan mountain, where the spiritual energy is richer. We and some other incompetent people, the loose cultivators from no sect, practiced there, and finally formed a sect spontaneously. They didn't bother to give it a name, so they adopted this name. I see, Mujiawa nodded, took out some middle-grade spiritual stones, gave one to each person, and said, we are destined to meet each other. Yu Lingshan and I have a deep connection, and we are old friends. After all, the spirit stone is here as a greeting gift for you, and the other is to go to the misty mountains and forests. Please take good care of it. You should be united when you are away. If Yunzhou can have the scene now, I don't expect it. Several Foundation establishment stagers were all ecstatic. Although the warning in Mujiawa's words was obvious, in fact, they had no intention of touching Yu Lingshan at all. The Lingjian sect is now the largest sect in Yunzhou. It is said that there is the only human sect in the East Sheng realm, Qixingmenfiqian, and there are monks who form the nascent soul. This is not something they dare to offend. Thank you, Senior, thank you, Senior. Several people fell to the ground and thanked the wooden incarnation. Get up, I still have things to do, so goodbye. After saying that, the wood incarnation turned around and left, without any nostalgia. Only Yu Lingshan was a cultivator. If she was still a mortal, the wood incarnation would not have any earthly relationship with her, so as not to be contaminated by cause and effect. It's time to go to Huangshi Mountain to see the formation. The wood incarnation teleported away directly. How could these foundation-building cultivators have ever seen such magical powers? Only the leading foundation-building cultivator murmured, teleport, only the nascent soul can teleport. Brother Zhang, you said he is a nascent soul. Yu Lingshan was stunned. Thinking about the fact that she had just pointed a sword at him. It's no wonder that this man who called himself her uncle would warn her to be careful and not to be reckless. Of course it's the nascent soul stage. Zhang, the foundation-building cultivator, took a deep breath, looked at the direction where the wood incarnation disappeared with longing, and said, we, the scattered cultivators gathered in Wangxian sect, always have all kinds of news about realms. Teleportation is the symbol of the nascent soul stage. You know, the strongest cultivator in our Yunzhou is only the foundation-building cultivator. If you want to condense the golden elixir, you must cross the Hongduan mountains and go to Yezhu. But if you want to make another breakthrough, you have to go to the Peepa realm. Only in the Peeper realm can you cultivate to the nascent soul stage. So, my uncle is from the Peeper realm. Yu Lingshan said excitedly. Of course, she had heard of the Peeper realm. Yes, not only is he from the Peeper realm, but it is also very likely, he is also from our Yunzhou. After all, Zhang, the foundation building cultivator, is older and more stable than Yu Lingshan. He does not have such a strong reaction as her, but the yearning in his heart is not diminished at all, and it is even more than that. The older you are, the stronger your desire for realm breakthrough is, because it is related to lifespan. Then, what is the Peeper realm like? Yu Lingshan tilted her head and couldn't help but mutter to herself. That place, maybe it's the fairyland. Someone interrupted from the side. Yu Lingshan glanced at him. He was a young male cultivator who also came from Wangxian section. His surname seemed to be Zhu. Brother Zhu, she said her opinion, no matter how good the Peeper realm is, it is just our mortal world. If the Peeper realm is like the fairyland, what about the spiritual world? And, what about the legendary fairyland? This made the man surnamed Zhu speechless. It seems that it is indeed the case. Fairy Yu, Zhang, the foundation building cultivator, said with a smile, once we cultivators set foot on the immortal path, there is no turning back. How difficult is it to achieve immortality? But we are so lucky to be born in Yunzhou now. Practice well and seize every opportunity. One day, we will all reach the Peeper realm. Then think about how beautiful the spiritual world and the immortal world are. As soon as these words came out, all the foundation building cultivators resonated. Good. Brother Zhang is worthy of his down-to-earth insights, which made us suddenly realize. That's right, practice well, maybe you can go to the immortal world and admire the glory of Zhu Xian. Indeed, cultivating immortals is like sailing against the current. If you don't move forward, you will retreat. We should practice well, step by step. See what beautiful scenery we will encounter on this immortal path. Everyone was full of confidence, but Mu Huashan had never thought of it. Of course, even if he thought of it, so what, these people are just passers-by. And on his way to Huangshi Mountain, something unexpected finally happened in Haiu City. For several days, Zhu Feng kept an eye on Yao Fuzong's every move and found his small movements that were very inconsistent with ordinary cultivators. If others saw him, Yao Fuzong looked like a merchant who bought demon pills. But Zhu Feng, who had once stepped into the top of Yunzhou and Yaezhu, had a broad vision. Yao Fuzong deliberately suppressed his cultivation and hid his injuries, and all his actions were for demon pills. The demon pill transaction in Haiu City was not a big deal, but Yao Fuzong kept it hidden, and combined with various situations, he naturally had doubts. At this time, he and Yao Fuzong stood opposite each other in an open space outside Haiu City. Daiyu, why are you stopping me from going to the sea to train? Yao Fuzong looked unhappy. He was not afraid of Zhu Feng, who was only in the foundation building stage, but he was afraid that a fight would not only cause a commotion, but also affect the injuries in his body. Apart from the 10,000 demons art, he had no other method to use. Daiyu Yao, Zhu Feng grinned and said, I am a sword cultivator. When I stepped into the immortal path, I wanted to fight with all the cultivators in the world. I am not stopping Daiyu Yao, but I saw that Daiyu Yao's temperament was far beyond that of ordinary people, and the sword in his hand was thirsty, so I wanted to fight with Daiyu Yao. Hearing this, Yao Fuzong's face suddenly turned cold. Sword cultivators, knife cultivators, or other cultivators who used spiritual tools as their way were all crazy. He had also encountered many of them when he was in the spirit world. So, he didn't want to deal with them at all. But now, it seems that he has no other way except to let the sword cultivator have a taste. Fellow deist, I have something important to attend to. How about waiting for me to come back from the sea and find a free day to spar with you? By then, I can fight you for 300 rounds in this open space, or even for 3 days and 3 nights. Ha ha ha, Zhu Feng raised his head and laughed, and then his eyes narrowed. Yao Daiyu, I have already said that I am hungry and thirsty, how can I wait a few more days? It is better to choose a day than to hit the sun. Besides, I also watched the almanac today and went out. It's a good day. Good days. Yao Fuzong cursed in his heart, can this competition have auspicious days? That's right, Zhu Feng grinned, it's a good time to bury someone today. After the words fell, Zhu Feng stepped on the sword, his body was like a ghost. The next moment, the spiritual sword left to him by Zhu Yun was pointed directly at Yao Fuzong's eyebrows. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1239. Boy, you're looking for death. Yao Fuzong was furious and quickly dodged. This sword technique is nothing, even if Zhu Feng's sword techniques are all inherited from Sun Qiniang and originated from Wanjian Mountain. But Yao Fuzong's vision is really ordinary. But what made him look at it differently was the sword in Zhu Feng's hand. The sword that Zhu Yun left for Zhu Feng was a genuine spiritual sword. Maybe it's just an ordinary spiritual sword, but it appears in the hands of a foundation building period, which is worth pondering. Yao Fuzong could naturally see this, and coupled with Zhu Feng's words about the day he was buried, it was clearly a bad omen. Immediately, he also condensed his spiritual power and slapped it out with one palm. The demonic power spread immediately, and with a snap, Zhu Feng was slapped out with his sword. So strong. Zhu Feng was also shocked. He thought that Yao Fuzong was at most a Jindan stage hidden here. He had the demon refining tower as a backup, so he could fight him. But this back and forth made him realize that the other party was at least in the Yuanying stage. How to fight him? Zhu Feng, who had reached the Yuanying stage, knew the horror of the Yuanying stage. Thinking back then, when he reached the Jindan stage and had magic skills, he still needed to act carefully, and finally used the demon refining tower to kill him. Could it be that he had to use the demon refining tower now? Yao Fuzong looked at Zhu Feng's frightened expression and laughed. Then he suddenly became ferocious and said, "Boy, you want to fight me with a mere foundation establishment stage? Back then, let alone foundation establishment stage, even if it was a void refining stage or a combination stage, I could crush it to death like an ant. It's just that I'm seriously injured now and need to adapt to this body. Otherwise, you. However, you, a foundation establishment stage, can have a spiritual sword, which is really an eye-opener for me. Can you tell me what your background is?" Yao Fuzong slowly moved forward, approaching Zhu Feng step by step. Bleeding from the corners of Zhu Feng's mouth, the huge demonic power was not something he could resist now. A mistake, he could only use the demon refining tower directly. However, the demon refining tower was far less convenient than the first time he used it. At that time, the evil thoughts of the tower spirit wanted Zhu Feng to survive in order to escape from the tower, so no matter what, he would try his best to cooperate with Zhu Feng. But at this time, the tower spirit was a bird, a kind thought. First, he was not familiar with the control of the demon refining tower. Second, he had just awakened and was weaker than his original evil thoughts. Therefore, if Zhu Feng wanted to win with one blow, it would still take some time. It was not as simple as a thought. But the trouble was, Zhu Feng did not know that the demon refining tower was originally made by Yao Fuzong. Yao Fuzong did not even know that the demon refining tower was in Zhu Feng's hands. Under such circumstances, the situation became extremely delicate. After Yao Fuzong took action, he no longer deliberately suppressed his strength. He could not stay in Hiu City, but it was not that he had nowhere to go. At the same time, during this time in Hao City, Yao Fuzong also knew that the highest level of this land was only the foundation establishment stage, and the barren spiritual energy was the upper limit. But even if he came to the core formation stage, that could not stop him. It was nothing more than letting his injuries recur, and he needed more time to heal and recover. Boy, is this spirit sword your confidence? Tell me, why do you want to kill me? Yao Fuzong has been feeling a little frustrated these days. As the saying goes, it's easy to mess with the king of hell, but hard to deal with little ghosts. Not to mention being cautious, he really doesn't want to attract a group of ordinary little cultivators by any action he takes. Even if he can kill these little cultivators, such as Zhu Feng in front of him. But the problem is that every time he takes action, it will cause the demon power to vibrate. It will take a long time to calm down, which is not worth the loss. Therefore, he has been staying at home. But he didn't expect that he would be broken by Zhu Feng. In this case, let's vent it out. Zhu Feng is also a person who has seen the world. Although Yao Fuzong said that the cultivators who only exist in the spiritual world, such as Xianxia, he knew that since they appeared in the mortal world, they would inevitably be suppressed by the heaven. At most, they are just yuanying. Do I need a reason to kill you? Zhu Feng chose to be tough. This can arouse Yao Fuzong, so that he will have a chance to take action. Ha ha ha, Yao Fuzong laughed wildly. Yes, yes, there is no need for a reason to kill me. Then I don't need a reason to kill you either. Zhu Feng said in a deep voice, sword cultivators like us are either on the way to kill or on the way to be killed. Over the years, I have killed many people, and many people want to kill me. It doesn't matter that I am a sword cultivator to die at the hands of a senior from the spirit world. Sword cultivators, annoying sword cultivators, are all like this. They are obviously going to die, but they are still so arrogant. Are you really not afraid of death? Yao Fuzong began to sneer. He had fought against many sword cultivators in the spirit world. In comparison, those sword cultivators have boundless magical powers, and a spiritual sword is used to make a lot of flowers. If he didn't have the fairy world's strange book and learned a lot of exquisite magical powers, I'm afraid he wouldn't have achieved what he has today. Afraid of death? Of course I'm afraid of death. But, is it useful to be afraid of death? Zhu Feng didn't even blink. While stirring up Yao Fuzong's emotions, he carefully put his right hand into his sleeve. The demon refining tower is hidden in it. Boy, Yao Fuzong laughed, if I were still in the spirit world, I would accept you as my disciple and let you guard my house. Unfortunately, I am now in the mortal world and I can't protect myself. I can only kill you here. As he spoke, countless cultivators in the sea city were also alarmed by the evil spirits. They thought that the sea monsters were coming and rushed out of the city. But they were shocked to see that the evil spirits were only drawn from Yao Fuzong. One person actually has such strength. Some people even passed by Yao Fuzong and recognized him after looking at him carefully. They also exclaimed, "There is such a powerful person living in the sea city?" Gradually, the expressions of those who looked at Zhu Feng turned into pity. Zhu Feng practiced swordsmanship and had many exchanges with others in the sea city, but many cultivators did not like this. However, Zhu Feng was stronger and they were reluctant, so they could only follow his will. There was naturally resentment in their hearts. Seeing Zhu Feng half lying on the ground, they could not help but feel a little gloating. You kid also have this day? You hit a wall, right? See, they seem to, also think you must die. Yao Fuzong turned his eyes over, and a group of cultivators immediately stood in awe, their eyes full of longing, which made Yao Fuzong suddenly feel vain. It seemed that he had not experienced this for a long time. Thinking back to the time when he had not yet refined the demon refining tower, in the spirit world, in the heaven beyond heaven, how many juniors saw me with this expression? After all, I am also in the Mahayana stage. If you don't go through the tribulation, the Mahayana is invincible. What's the joy of living, and why bother dying? Zhu Feng sneered, and carefully turned the demon refining tower, which had shrunk into a knife shape, over so that he could attack later. I, Zhu Feng, have also died once. Yao Fuzong raised his eyebrows. If that's the case, then, go to hell. After that, his palm slapped towards Zhu Feng's crown. If this palm hits, the head and brain will flow out. Zhu Yun suddenly raised his right hand, seemingly an instinctive reaction, to block this palm. But Yao Fuzong has the advantage of realm. Even if Zhu Feng's strength is at the peak of the late foundation building period, he will still be broken by his hands and feet. How strong is the demon power contained in the 10,000 demons art? But he never expected it. Zhu Feng was waiting for this moment. With his strength, he might easily let Yao Fuzong dodge by stabbing the demon refining tower with the demon refining tower. On the contrary, this attack is like Yao Fuzong hitting the demon refining tower himself. I saw that a black light flashed, and Zhu Feng's hand had been pulled out from his sleeve. In his hand, he was holding a dark, dagger-sized demon refining tower. Boy, why are you? Yao Fuzong was shocked. His palm had been pierced by the demon refining tower. With a puff, blood gushed out, but it did not fall to the ground, and was actually sucked into the demon refining tower. Demon refining tower, demon refining tower. Why is my treasure in your hands? The pain, the boundless pain. Yao Fuzong was even more hysterical. His palm was pierced, but he didn't care at all, and clenched his fist and held the bottom of the tower in his hand. Then, he laughed crazily again. Ha ha ha, demon refining tower, my demon refining tower is back again. As soon as the voice fell, Yao Fuzong's figure disappeared. Zhu Feng was stunned. The information revealed in the other party's words said that the demon refining tower is his. Is this possible? Just when Zhu Feng's thoughts stagnated and he couldn't believe it at all, the demon refining tower suddenly changed again. Boom! Boom! The demon refining tower, which still faintly revealed a bloody aura, began to grow rapidly. From the size of a dagger, it gradually changed back to its original appearance. A dark giant tower stood on the open space outside the sea city. The cold and strange breath made the air stagnate. Zhu Feng looked up. He could feel that the demon refining tower was still under his control. This means, this tower will not be returned to its original owner. Humph, the original evil thoughts were caused by you, right? If this tower falls into your hands, I'm afraid that the mortal world will be destroyed. How could the mortal world that my brother has finally stabilized be ruined by you? I, Zhu Feng, will kill you in the tower even if I die. After that, Zhu Feng walked to the front of the tower, opened the bronze door, and stepped into it resolutely. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 1240. Inside the tower, it was still the same as before, and Zhu Feng found no trace of Yao Fuzong. No matter how the demon refining tower changes, the space inside has never changed, so as soon as Yao Fuzong came in, he could immediately determine his position and rush towards the entrance of the next floor as soon as possible. But fortunately, after entering the tower, Zhu Feng was able to contact a Niao. Tower spirit is the person who just came in, the original tower builder. After a long time, a Niao's voice sounded in Zhu Feng's mind. Yes. You. Zhu Feng found that he didn't know where to start the question, because he knew that Yao Fuzong was a Niao's previous owner. No matter what, even if we can't kill him, we will trap him here to death. He is well aware of the horror of the demon refining tower. If this tower is returned to Yao Fuzong's hands, the consequences will be truly disastrous. He is very aware of the destructive power that the demon refining tower can produce. Not only can it imprison demons and people, but as long as you master the power in the tower, you can also refine living creatures in it and become the source of power of the demon refining tower. At first, all the power of the demon refining tower came from the monster beasts in the tower and the 11 clans of demon cultivators trapped on the 9th floor. Now that there are no creatures in the demon refining tower, Yao Fuzong will surely repopulate the demon refining tower with demon beasts. Walk. Zhu Feng didn't have many options. No matter how much he communicated with A Niao now, it would be far inferior to teaming up with him to deal with Yao Fuzong. At the very least, the demon refining tower was his natal spiritual weapon. This is the only advantage available to him. But in comparison, Zhu Feng's speed was much slower than Yao Fuzong's. While he was still rushing, Yao Fuzong was already standing at the altar. Jinpeng, why is the tower like this? Where are those monsters, the monster cultivators here, and your kind thoughts? Yao Fuzong saw the shadow in the sphere and shouted sharply, but he did not notice that the evil thought tower spirit turned into a good thought. He was more concerned about the empty demon refining tower. A Niao has a natural respect for Yao Fuzong. Even though he has never seen him for tens of thousands of years, the inferiority of master and servant has been deeply rooted in his bones. A Niao is silent because as soon as he opens his mouth, Yao Fuzong will immediately realize that he has no evil intentions. But with just a slight movement of his mind, a golden light flashed over the sphere, and Yao Fuzong's expression suddenly changed. You don't have evil thoughts, you have good thoughts? Jinpeng, tell me quickly, what happened to this tower? This was the demon refining tower that Yao Fuzong had gone to great lengths to prepare for the catastrophe, and would even play a major role in the immortal world. How could he be willing to accept such a huge change? His voice suddenly increased several times. Master, don't ask any more, the demon refining tower is no longer the demon refining tower it used to be. As soon as the voice came out, Yao Fuzong's expression changed. You don't have evil thoughts, you have good thoughts? Yes, I am Shan Nian. Now that he was recognized, A Niao simply admitted it generously. At the same time, a shadow emerged from the sphere, and it was clearly A Niao's appearance. Jinpeng, tell me quickly, what exactly happened to the demon refining tower? Was it the fault of the boy with the sword? Yao Fuzong gritted his teeth. He divided his soul into 12 paths and hid it in a totem pole and slept for thousands of years. The purpose was to establish contact with the demon refining tower and then control the 11 tribes of demon cultivators. As long as you retrieve the demon refining tower, go to the spiritual world to find the demon dragon clan, place a demon dragon, and gather the 12 clans of demon cultivators, you can fully activate the tower. The laws of the demon race's destiny will be engraved into this tower, and the demon refining tower will transform into a genuine fairy weapon. The space in it will also become an independent world for the other party, and his path to immortality will be limitless. Even if he faces a catastrophe, he will have full confidence. But now, there is nothing. His eyes widened with anger, but A Niao remained silent and didn't answer much. Not to mention that he really didn't know why the demon refining tower was like this, but even if he knew, he wouldn't tell Yao Fuzong. Through Zhu Yun's mouth, I learned that Yao Fuzong has been using them, and he also wants to harm thousands of monsters. This is a kind thought, based on kindness. If you tell Yao Fuzong, wouldn't you be helping Zhou to do evil? Okay, very good, very good. Yao Fuzong's face instantly turned cold, and he stopped talking nonsense and used a mysterious spell on A Niao. Waves of demon power surged out of his body and headed toward the black ball. A Niao's expression changed. He naturally recognized that this was the 10,000 demons art. Even though Yao Fuzong's strength was now limited, his suppression on him had never become smaller. Call out. A Niao retracted into the sphere without hesitation, letting those demonic forces continue to impact the sphere. Jinpeng, just hide in this tower spirit body and experience my 10,000 demons art again. After saying this, Yao Fuzong stopped talking nonsense and concentrated on using the magic formula. The injuries in his body more or less affected his performance. What he didn't expect was that the difficulty of the matter was beyond his expectation. The demon refining tower is not as simple as it was when he first refined it. After countless time and years of precipitation, plus being refined by Zhu Feng twice. Although the tower spirit changed from evil thoughts to good thoughts, Zhu Feng and the demon refining tower were far more closely connected than he thought. Yao Fuzong felt that he could regain control of the demon refining tower within an hour at most. But after 2 full hours, he had only refined about 20% of it, and now he was in a dilemma. The 10,000 demon power in his body gradually became insufficient, which forced Yao Fuzong to absorb the demon power floating in the 9-layer space to replenish it. Only then did he remember that he was not in the Mahayana stage, but only in the nascent soul stage. Damn it, I made such a big mistake. Yao Fuzong gritted his teeth and put all his hatred on the sphere, but he was still in the state of mind during the Mahayana period. It was just that he had been hit one after another during this period, so he made such an unwise move. Because there is still the potential risk of Zhu Feng. Whatever you worry about will come to you. 2 hours later, Zhu Feng had already arrived. When he saw Yao Fuzong using the 10,000 demon art to refine the demon refining tower, he rushed up with sword steps. Old dog, die. Hearing the movement behind him, Yao Fuzong couldn't move away. If he had not been injured, he would have just forced his way back, and at most he would have suffered some injuries from the shock. But his body is already injured, and the injuries are getting worse. If he is seriously injured here, the consequences are unpredictable. Shizi, how dare you? You are only in the foundation building stage, but you dare to hurt me. For Yao Fuzong, what was fortunate at this time was that the previous spiritual sword had been destroyed. At this time, Zhu Feng could not really hurt him with only a pair of fleshy palms. As long as he gets through it, by the time the demon is refined in the demon refining tower, this boy will definitely die. The only thing he is worried about is that Zhu Feng will withdraw from the demon refining tower and call his friends to find someone to deal with him. He is not afraid of someone breaking in. It is extremely difficult to find this place. But if Zhu Feng leads the way, everything will be hard to say. So, in order to keep Zhu Feng here, he did everything he could to anger Zhu Feng with words and make him attack him continuously. Bang! 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 Zhu Feng was good at swordsmanship, but he was not strong enough to fight with his bare hands. In addition, he was also shocked inside his body, so he chased after him before he could recover. No matter how much he slapped Yao Fuzong, the opponent's body remained motionless. Yao Fuzong was secretly proud in his heart and kept shouting that when he refines this tower, he will torture Zhu Feng in any way. In his opinion, when ordinary people hear such words and see that they have no power to fight back, they will definitely try their best to kill them. But how did he know that Zhu Feng is also very human? After bombarding continuously for an hour, Zhu Feng was tired. This is completely useless. If I continue like this, it will be a complete waste of time. In fact, this is Yao Fuzong's plan to delay the attack. A bright light flashed in Zhu Feng's eyes, and he stopped moving, which made Yao Fuzong have to be alert. But when he found that Zhu Feng not only did not leave, but instead walked towards the place where the 12 statues were originally placed, his eyes couldn't help but live. Suspect. Did this kid give up and wait for death? But why didn't he run away? Yao Fuzong could not separate out a trace of demon power and turn it into demon consciousness to detect Zhu Feng's actions. He could only listen to some weak voices and judge that Zhu Feng had not left. That's all. According to this progress, in 3 days and 3 nights at most, I will be able to completely refine this tower. If he doesn't leave, it won't be better. Yao Fuzong simply ignored it. It was only in the foundation building period. He had no means and was afraid he would give up. While he was immersed in his mind and refining the demon refining tower with all his strength, Zhu Feng was also concentrating and sitting cross-legged. Poverty brings change. Zhu Feng knew that this had reached the most critical moment, and he could not continue to attack like before. How can he shake Yao Fuzong's body during his period of foundation building with injuries? That is, after calming down, he saw this open space and remembered the 9-generation magic power that he had left here. But the 9 generations demonic art no longer existed and was completely erased by Zhu Yun. But another kind of magic power has penetrated deep into the bone marrow. That is, the magic swallowing skill. The devouring demon technique is the real beginning of his journey to immortality. It is the memory and instinct that truly penetrates into the bone marrow. Even if Zhu Yun also erased the method of practicing this skill from Zhu Feng's mind, after all, it had existed before, and he could recall it with just one movement. Another point is that there is no limit to the level of the devouring demon technique. Those at a low level can completely swallow the vitality and power of a high level. The premise is that Zhu Feng at this time can withstand Yao Fuzong's huge power. And everything is a coincidence. At this time, Yao Fuzong had only taken away Zhao Kamang's body. Under the demon-devouring power, he could only be regarded as a nascent soul monk, and it had nothing to do with Yao Fuzong's soul. When Zhu Feng stood up again and walked towards Yao Fuzong, things were already doomed. "Boy, do you want to continue killing me, or do you want to ask for mercy? Yao Fuzong still has 2 days left before he can be completely refined, and even if Zhu Feng goes back to find someone in these 2 days, I'm afraid it won't be enough." He showed his true colors, extremely sarcastic. But who is Zhu Feng? In a certain aspect, his determination is far greater than that of Zhu Yun. No, Zhu Feng shook his head and said lightly, "I wonder, old dog, have you ever heard of a technique?" "Ha ha ha," Yao Fuzong laughed, "what skills in the mortal world can catch my eye? And in the spiritual world, what skills are better than this 10,000 demons art?" Zhu Feng's face did not change, and he remained calm, "Even if the power of spirits, demons, and immortals, including your vitality, is all power, it's just that we reach the same goal through different paths. Swallowing demon power can swallow the power of the world. I won't kill you, and I won't beg for mercy. I won't suck you dry." After saying that, he slowly stretched out his right palm and placed it on Yao Fuzong's back.